Back by popular demand, ladies and gentlemen. Can't keep these videos coming out fast enough. So we decided to put our efforts together. First of all, let's give much thanks to our brother JTD, who was hosting, putting up this content, has invited us to speak and give commentary. Now we going into this blind, right? We don't know how these battles are going to play out, but we're here to give y'all some insight.
Hello.
Now, there we go. Perfect timing. Doing this just by one voice alone. That's like trying to have one hand clap by itself, right? It's just, you know what I mean. Like, let me try right now. Don't that you know what I mean? That sounds like something else. Yeah, don't even say it.
All right, I got a good one for you, Kick. This one I'm running blue yellow tempo, but instead of 4 lands, it runs 5 lands. So here we go. I'm gonna click play and.
Okay. Hold on. Now, before we go into the weeds of this, right, and you get all the ticks and the triggers and you know what I mean, all that stuff. Before we get into that, right, you got your waders on, right, because you know how contentious these discussions of strategy and even the terminology, right? See, using the terminology, that word tempo, right? I didn't know that was a taboo word. Apparently that's a taboo word, right? Apparently there's like an entire fraction. Yeah, see, you knew, right? You just let me go out there and make an ass of myself. But yeah, apparently there's some folks like tempo doesn't exist. That's just a figment of people's imagination. So let us break down just for a second, just for 2 seconds. It's gonna take longer than that, but just what is tempo in a game like Faeria? When people talk about tempo, what do they mean? I got a vision in my head of what it means, but what you got?
Tempo typically means they want to get to the opponent kind of close enough to dead in the mid game, but it's not as quick as like say Rush. It's similar to Rush, but it's not really rushing the typical Rush where you just go down the straight line. Tempo usually has like they're usually going to the sides and collecting. They have either 1 or 2 cards in their deck of that are 3-0s that are the end game boss.
Okay. Got something. We're gonna save. Yep, we're gonna save something. We're gonna yes. Okay, we're gonna save that for the end of the cast, right? Because people call it tempo, but you just gave me that sounds like stamina, right? Would people accept that terminology better? We call it stamina decks, right?
Stamina
Because that's the worst thing. That's my experience playing those types of lists, right? It's you could play it fast, but you can also play it slow. But it's not too. You can't lean too much into it either way, right?
Yeah.
You got to kind of keep pace with what your opponent's doing. If you overextend with those lists, it's very hard to come back because you don't have a lot of the same heavy or stipulated win conditions that a lot of the other lists have. Okay, fair enough. Let's do this thing, brother. Let's see what you got in store. No.
All right, so
Is our opponent?
So our opponent is TYSTY. I just say thank you as a.
That's thirsty. That's thirsty. Come on now.
Now I already have like.
No, that's thirsty. Come on now. It's a democracy. We might have to take a vote on that one, y'all. What do y'all see? Y'all see thank you, or you see thirsty? I see thirsty. And they start playing blue, right? Which hold up now. If this was a blue, okay, it's a forest. I was like, now if they started a rush and then they just hit you with a blue, I was like, what? You'll see Corey Pollinball.
I
Okay,
already
so
have a
you
great,
wanna,
I already have a great start, and I already have one of the end game bosses in Wave Crash Colossus.
yeah, I'm about to say, you know, okay, then another plan back on the end there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
At this point, I just thought I'm just gonna go with my game plan. I did. The buff did go to toe ship. That does matter, like a lot. Instead of
Yeah, that just barely meets the requirement for that.
yeah,
Now, is that a new discovery, or have you known that trick for a while?
it's been in yeah. Blue Yellow Tempo typically runs toe ship because of the Ancient Herald buff into toe ship is real good. Like in
Hell yeah, it
the
is.
yeah, because you can just play the toe ship even though even if you lose kind of the tempo line, you can still play toe ship and something else if you have five faeria.
Now, now that forest that was played right there in the middle of the land. You know, Fairy is an interesting game where by controlling the middle land, it does help out a lot. But in this matchup, it seems like they would have been better off playing that on the back end because they could have that would have prevented that toe ship play right there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Uh,
it really would have.
and then you know with the neutral lands that they extended out in that direction as well. Um, so just a word of caution. Been through it myself plenty of times. Sometimes you think you know what your opponent's doing. It's better you have your own strategy, but do not underestimate what your opponent, you know what I mean, is working with.
Yeah, his first turn
Why so
was probably a
serious?
detriment to his game plan. Um, first two turns, he just if he was rushing with green rush. But it turns out it's just green yellow sack because of the spirit rebirth. So it's just bad lines, honestly. Here I'm gonna have to give something as in his hand a spare rebirth buff, even though I really don't want to. Um,
Mm, no mercy. Look, as the old saying goes, a warrior will avoid conflict at all costs, but once a battle starts, there'll be no mercy.
yeah, yeah. So my thought process going into that was just clearing the spare rebirth so he doesn't get like a wind soldier easily on a 4 buff. Because if the Spirit Rebirth was still alive during this turn, he could have had like 4 things die instead of just 1.
And that ancient herald from the beginning is still on the board.
Yeah.
It made its way all the way up there.
Thanks to Sunken Tower.
Yep. Hands down. Yellow Flyers is great, but I think that Blue still has one leg up in the game when it comes to mobility because of their ability to actually just shift entire lands around the board.
Yeah, in the early
Completely.
yeah, in the early game it's Sunken Tower. Early to mid game, Sunken Tower is real good. When it gets later in the game, Sunken Tower is still relevant because it can prevent a lethal attack. But
It's been the bane of my existence many a match.
yeah, yeah,
Like the first thought that comes to one's mind when your opponent plays Sunken Tower is Why don't I have that in my list right now?
Here's like one of the few lines that I actually liked. I just drew a Kaleem's training. So instead of him, he's playing towards the board, so he didn't know I could draw into Kaleem's training, and there you have it.
Yeah, a slight shift in momentum would have given. I mean, it could have basically been a doggone 15, 20-minute match, all things considered.
Yeah, so I think honestly, just playing a forest straight out the gate, to the right or left of his orb would have probably put him in a better position overall.
Yeah. Now that reminds me of something that we was talking about before we started recording, which was we was going over all the lists that we've used over the years, battling against each other, battling against other people, and to the best of my recollection, you didn't use a lot of red combat. To which you told me,
You gonna bring this
yeah,
up
yeah,
now?
yeah, I'm breaking that. I told you I was saving it for the cast, right? No, that'd be too easy, right? I'm sitting there, jaw just didn't hit the floor, going too easy.
Yeah,
I
red.
mean, I get it, right? To a certain extent, I get it. It's burn combat burn specifically, right? But I
Yeah.
was like, yo, like the way of the sword, too easy. Yeah,
It
I hear
is.
you.
It's too easy, man. It's too easy. So you
Yeah,
gotta.
but once you pick it up and you see, man, you so many times you end up losing. You live by the sword, you die by the sword, right? It's
Yeah.
true. You play combat, man, it'd be your worst thing because you'd be like, oh crap, look, another damn oak tree I gotta kill, right?
Yeah. Combat's worst matchup is green, and a lot of
Hmm.
players have been playing green lately.
Yep. Well, I mean, and people could get their defense game right no matter, what color set they're using, right? Just got to be aware of what you're kind of dealing with and stuff. It's always fun to see, you know what I mean, uh, different people's perspectives and ways of solving the different problems they come up against in these matchups.
Yeah.
So we got another recording to go through.
Yes, and that will be on Sunday. So stay tuned.